out to the show and fall out your door. We got that info for you. Touchdown on that plane and buy anything. More than just a podcast for you.
Last question. When parents ridicule their kids or other people's kids for having poor performances in a game or in a practice over and over, it can create barriers in their relationships with their sons and daughters. What are some ways that parents can get their point across without being critical, without damaging the relationships they have with their sons and daughters?
We're talking really ridicule and not correction. I've seen some coaches and some parents who try to correct their kids. That's a little bit different. Me personally, when I go to see my boys, I always try to sit far away from everybody. My ex-wife and everybody, because she's seen no wrong. Because coach, sometimes a play just works even though they did the wrong thing. And I'll say, man, he did good. He scored, okay, but maybe he was just faster than everybody. So I learned that pretty quick. If I want to have what they used to say, a happy wife, happy life. So I used to sit way up in the bleachers by myself and just critique by myself. And then we could always talk about it and work on it when I got back home. I hate seeing those parents who overcoaching the coach. When they get there, it's the coaches. If coach was coaching one of my boys and I seen something right, me and him gonna work on it at home. And then when he get back, he'll be better for coach next time. So I'm not gonna overcoach him on the field, that's for sure. Because coaching's hard enough, man. It's easy when you're up in the stands. And I said that to a parent before. I was coaching in high school. They just gave it to me. I said, well, you know what? You can coach next week if you want to, and let's see how it goes. So, I mean, it's hard enough, man. You're trying to get everybody on one accord. I would have never ridiculed a kid or somebody else's kid. I try not to say anything because you don't know whose kid is whose anyway most of the time. I just don't think that's good. I don't think that's healthy. I think you should correct and critique, but there's a way to do that. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I usually tell my parents, during the game, don't talk to your kids. Let me coach them. If you got something to say to them after the game, go ahead. But if you're trying to tell them what to do, and it's not going to work. It's all going to go downhill. So, like with my son, like he said, I used to sit with my son's mom, and he should be on offense. He's playing. That's not rock the beehive, If he wasn't playing, that'd be different. I love to see him on offense too, but he's playing on defense. But he's playing. If he wasn't playing, let's gripe. So I don't like my daughter, I think I was rough on her a little bit because I would sit right in the front row at the basketball games. And if she wasn't playing to perform, I would let her know, hey, baby girl, you got to turn it up. Hey, you're slacking. Hey, coach, you should take her out. If a person's not giving you 100%, put them on the bench. Don't play them because you feel that's your best kid. You got to show them, because if they think they're the best talent, they do what they want to do, and then it affects the team. Because the team say, like, oh, he missing all these shots, team playing as a team, he keep in the game. I miss one shot, you take me out the game. You got to be fair across the board, whether it's your star player or your weakest player. But, yeah, you shouldn't yell at your kids. I see it all the time. They really come at the kids, and the kids want to cuss at the parents in the stands. Now they totally out of the game, so you're not helping them. I used to tell my kid, we'll talk after the game.
Yeah.
If you already see you upset because you're messing up, I'm not going to keep putting fuel on the fire because now you're really not going to have a good game. And then you're really going to be mad at me. But, yeah, you got to know how to talk to your kids or let your kids know, hey, during the game, I may do this just to help you out. Like football, my son's in college. At halftime, I text him. He's like, yeah, Dad, I know. I seen that. I'm going to work on that. Like, that's what you do. But if you don't got the relationship with them, you really can't say nothing because you ain't going to help out.
I agree with that. For Paris and I, what we do is after a game or practice, I wait for him to come to me. I don't say anything to him. I wait for him to come to me, and he'll come to me and he'll tell me what he needs to work on. and in teaching him how to be an advocate for himself, that I cannot speak for him. I wasn't the parent that was going to go to the coach and find out why my kid wasn't doing this, why my kid wasn't doing that. So when parents will come to me with things, I will help him to put together the questions that he had so he can go back to the coach and be a self-advocate for himself. So he can hear from the coach what he needs to work on. Then parents can come back to me and say, okay, mom, I need, for example, while he was switched from defensive end to offensive line and never played the position. So when he came to me like, mom, the coach said I need to work on my punch. Okay, well, let's go find somebody that can help you work on your punch. That's where I feel my role as his mother is to help him help him with the solution, not contribute to the problem, but help come up with the solution so he can work on what can help him be a better athlete.
So I'm going to just go out here and say, if you're listening to what I'm about to say, you do not have to do this. Football is my jam. Kids are my jam. Don't compare yourself to me. This is not expected. The one thing I wanted to do was make my kids feel like they were loved. So for me, every team my kids played on, whether it was track, whether it was football, I'll use football as an example. I adopted the whole entire team. Like I was the parent that on Thursdays and Wednesdays, I'd bake so that Fridays they could have something special. I did cards for the team. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was really saving kids from the car ride home, because after the games, I would organize like banquets, get the parents together, and we would actually sit and have a meal with the team post game. I mean, like a full meal. And looking back, I realized that gave them a buffer. Like they didn't immediately get into the car with their parents to talk about the game. They had time to sit down, eat a meal, be kids, process a little, because before they got in the car on the ride home. So they knew that I loved them. So I could say what I wanted to say because they knew that as people, I adored each and every one of them, whether they started, whether they didn't. So I would say, if you're listening, you definitely do not have to do what I do. People don't, I like cooking, it relaxes me, not required, but do something to show your kid that they are loved, whether that's a card, whether with my son personally, on game days, I would get up and I would have my quiet time, and it would be me asking God, what's the word that you want to give my son for this day? And I would send him every morning. He would have like, this is what God showed me for you. This is what's on my heart every game day. And that was our thing. And each parent should develop their thing for their kid, whether it's a card, whether it's a message that you send to them every day. And when I talk to my moms that have great relationships with their children, they have a thing. It's all different. Like I said, you don't have to be like me, but I would encourage you, in order to be able to constructively criticize your child and it not be taken at the wrong way, do something that shows your child that they are loved, regardless of how they perform in the sport. And that's what I got. That's what I got.
Man, after the game, I would have told my son, man, you better get in this car. We better go. I got some talk to you about. That coach in college ain't gonna be all, hey, let me give you some cookies and stuff. No, that coach ain't worried about that mess. They worried about, hey, next time when I say we in cover 3, your ass better be in cover 3. Don't be up here playing man when you're supposed to be in cover 3. You messing up the whole chain. One link mess up, the whole chain messed up. And so, I can't do that. I ain't gonna do it while you're on the field. But we got our own little thing. My son in the pros right now, and still he hit me up after the game. What you think about this? What you think about that? It might be text now because he don't want to hear it and he don't got to reply to the text, But he does hit me up. And I'll be like, hey, you need to use your hands more. You need to do this more. But he still respects my opinion enough to know that, hey, he's seeing something that I don't see, vice versa. We don't have to agree on it. But I've noticed before, even in college, when people get off on him, he don't use his hands. I was like, man, that's your weapon. Why you not using them? Next game, I see him, he out there mugging everybody, and the game is better. So we text this morning, and I said, hey, I need a better game than you had last week. He said, that's what I'm going to give you. So stuff like that. That's just simple stuff Me and Derek used to do the same thing. I said, hey, bro, can I get 4 sacks today? That's what I'm after. I'm going to try to give you 5. So, you already kind of set it up with them before the game, and then they hit you back later. And I don't mind, like, now they're grown, they're adults. They make money playing this game. So let them hit me up in the middle of the week and be like, hey, yeah, I had to calm down or whatever, because, it's their job now, and everybody's on them 24/7. So, yeah, you got to give them some time now to calm down. But I can't be baking no cookies or nothing like that, man. They grown.
But that's a good example, though. That's a really good example, because this is the best part of everybody's not me. You know what I'm saying? It's a real example. But the thing is, you have your thing with each and every one of them, and they know that even if they suck that day, you're going to get on them, but it's love. It's not. And I don't think a lot of parents have understood that when you give feedback, especially if it's hurtful feedback, because it's hard to hear you suck. You have to be able, your kid needs to know that you value them as a person outside of the game. But if you're listening, you got 2 different ways that you can show and how you love your kid.
Now, I might call you later and say you got some of them cookies left, but.
You know what, Ramsey? I'm still baking for those boys. I kid you not. They are in college now. Some of them have graduated, and I'm still baking for them.
Coach, I know you and Monica both probably see this, but some of the ones you own the hardest, some of the ones you ride the most, even when they leave, they're the ones who come back and hang with you and want to holler at you and all that kind of. And I noticed that, man. That some of the kids that I just ride be like, hey, Coach, I appreciate you not giving up on me and stuff. And, they're successful with their own families now, and hopefully you rubbed off on them a little bit.
Hey, because now the shows, I got a question back on the scholarships. When you get athletic and academic, you lose the academic. So say you lose the academic scholarship because now you playing the sport. But say you're really into your academics. And say some of your grades is short of your expectations. And now you don't want to play the sport, but you still want to be in school. Will the school offer you the academic scholarship back, or you have to pay? Or depends on the school?
It depends on the school. That's an excellent question. So it really does depend on the school. And so you will have to have your son or daughter go to the Office of Financial Aid, because let me start off by saying this. When a student applies to a university and they are offered, let's just say, like in Paris's instance, he was offered an academic scholarship that covered tuition. So, and that's roughly about $10,000 for in-state tuition at Ohio State. So when Paris received his full tuition for his full athletic scholarship from Ohio State, that $10,000 went away. So when a student wants to get additional scholarship money outside of athletics and they're choosing not to participate in their sport any longer, that is a different application process for the scholarship, because the first scholarship is for incoming freshmen only. If you decline that scholarship and you need additional dollars, then you have to go through a totally different application process as a student at that university for that academic scholarship. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So let me ask you this, Monica. This is something, my oldest son went to college 2009, and he was in that situation. So he had a lot of academic money, but he was on a full ride athletic scholarship. Back then, I think they would let them keep, kids who get Pell Grant can keep so much money up to a certain limit.
Yes.
And back then, I think he was able to keep some money, but they took off money from his scholarship at the same time to kind of balance it out, where he wouldn't have,
yes,
he would have an overabundance of money. He still had to stay within the same limits that the Pell Grant kids. So do they not do that anymore?
Yes, they still do that. So what I hear you saying is cost of attendance. Yes. So let's say cost of attendance at Ohio State for a student that's in state. I'm just making this number up. Let's just say it's $25,000 a year. So if a student full scholarship for football will cover that entire $25,000. It's an automatic. But if a student is awarded a Pell Grant, say, and I think in the state of Ohio, I want to say it's $6,000 if you're full Pell, they will allow them to keep the full Pell scholarship.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with athletics. It has nothing to do with your scholarship. Like Paris was also awarded academic scholarships that I had him apply for outside of Ohio State. He had to decline those as well because it exceeded his cost of attendance. So if his cost of attendance was less than, if his scholarship was less than his cost of attendance, then he could take on those additional academic scholarship dollars. But since his scholarship for football covered his cost of attendance, he had to decline the other scholarships.
Okay.
And for those, and let me ask this question since we're on this. If you're getting a scholarship that's not from the school, like it's from an outside entity, I think can you keep that money, or do you have to give that back as well?
We had to give that money back because that money they were actually going to write the check to Ohio State. And so Ohio State could not take the money at all.
Because it was over and beyond, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
So, Ms. Cleveland, your son went to one of the military academies. How does that work? And is it true that they get a nice stipend while they're there?
They are considered active duty when they're in the academies. And so everything was taken care of. Room and board, books, tuition, full medical, vision, dental, and they get a monthly stipend and it changes based on their year in schools. So the cadets, fourth grade, which is what we call freshmen, got a different amount of money than firsties, what we call seniors. But it was the most beautiful experience ever because you really don't have to worry about the cost of attendance. It's everything is included in that. The only thing that we really had to pay for is transportation, getting him home, back and forth from home. After the first time, because his first ticket to go to the academy when it was time for basic, all of that was covered. So we would cover his visits from home. And when he got out of practice, if Mitch's, which is called the dining hall, if it was closed, he had to have a food budget, but everything was actually covered. We didn't even have to do the FAFSA process, to be honest, because it didn't matter. So that's our show. I want to say thank you guys for tuning in, listening to another edition of the 10 for YouTube show, 10 questions for panelists. I'm your host, James Etta Cleveland, and we will see you guys next week.